17. June 1953. East Berlin. A People's Police officer files a report on enemy agitation. At home that night, he writes, "In the last war I guarded a camp. In this one I guard the workers' state. Only the flag above the watchtower is different." His name is Karl. He is 38. He knows which lines are dangerous. He writes them anyway. He tucks the notebook under a floorboard. The handwriting is tight, the habit of a clerk. The sentence is a thesis and a confession. It is also an arithmetic, then and now. Guard and state. Watchtower and flag. He will live a long time with that sentence. He will change uniforms. He will change words. He will not change the facts of where he stood and who passed under his eyes. He walked into May 1945 with a grey-green tunic. He walked out with a civilian coat and a ration card. He was one man among millions. The mathematics of defeat is always unromantic. The sums are rubble, paper, hunger. Berlin, 2 May 1945. Soviet troops take central districts. People mark doors with words. Kine Nazis higher. No Nazis here. They do not know whether it is a charm or a dare. The first days are about survival. Curfews. Lists. Missing names. The official city register for Berlin, late May 1945, shows gaps on gaps. The pages are crowded with absent men. The Bundesarchiv has the lists today. They look like ledgers with torn lines and low ink. Karl's wife stands in a bread line at Alexanderplatz. A woman with a shovel picks bricks into piles. The newspapers will later call them Trümmerfrauen. The term is political and real. Women clear streets while the men are prisoners or dead or hiding. 5. June 1945. Reads an occupation report from the Soviet Military Administration in Germany, SMAD. Curfew 2002-06 Odrid strictly enforced. Essential workers permitted travel with pass. The paper is thin. The type is uneven. The tone is clinical. A list of arrests follows. Some are for looting. Some are for suspected fascist activity. Some are for being in the wrong place with the wrong paper. Karl sleeps on a floor with his back to the wall. He shepherds his wife to the pump at dawn. He has not bathed properly in weeks. There is one bottle of schnapps left from before. He trades half for 2 kilos of potatoes. He keeps the other half for bad nights. He writes a biography for himself. He shortens dates. He dulls verbs. He turns guard into Schutz, duty into Dienst. He was a policeman before the war. That part is true. He entered the Ordnungspolizei at 19. He wore a uniform that fit badly and boots that fit well. He had a good arm for parade. He learned to file reports in narrow lines. In 1942, he was assigned to guard a labor camp attached to a synthetic fuel plant in Upper Silesia. That part is complicated. He writes in 1946, security detail at a supply depot. He leaves out the barbed wire. He leaves out the night shift at the gate, the register of prisoner numbers, the old man who fell down in the snow. He leaves out the smell of disinfectant that never covered the smell of lead and sweat. He writes security detail and waits to see if the word will pass. Rubble is everywhere. 1945 is a year of lists and wood stoves. The mathematics of calories rules all other equations. Ration cards carry numbers. Occupation authorities set the numbers. 1,000 calories for normal consumers. 1,800 for hard workers. Less for everyone else. The hunger winter of 1946-47 cuts deeper. Black bread with salt. Beet soup. Potato peels fried in things we no longer name. Cigarettes become currency. American cigarettes are gold. 1 pack equals 4 kilos of potatoes. An Allied intelligence summary for January 1947 notes. The black market in Berlin absorbs a majority of agricultural surplus reaching the city. Cigarettes serve as the medium of exchange. It is the algebra of survival. People disappear into the new camps. The NKVD opens special camps in the Soviet zone. Sachsenhausen becomes Special Camp Number 7. Buchenwald becomes Special Camp Number 2. Inmates are former Nazi officials, alleged war criminals, sometimes just people with enemies. They are called interned. Files are opened. Arrested on suspicion. Kommissar order, former NSDAP Kreisleiter. The language is official. The sentences are long even when the prisoners are not. Denazification arrives as forms. 131 questions in the American zone. Similar but different in the British and French. In the Soviet zone, a shorter questionnaire and longer interviews with anti-fascist committees. It is a massive paperwork machine. Allied administrators talk about justice. They also talk about stability. The mathematics of guilt is never only about guilt. It is about keeping schools open. It is about trains running. It is about deciding who can sign paychecks. Spruchkammern in the West use 5 categories: Hauptschuldige, major offenders; Belastet offenders; Minder Belastet, lesser offenders; Mitläufer followers; Entlastet, exonerated. The categories are legal but feel like account books. They assign percentages of blame to population segments. In practice, most are Mitläufer. They pay fines. They go home. In the Soviet zone, anti-fascist committees in factories, city offices, and villages sort people into Belastet and Nicht Belastet. Many teachers are removed. Some are quietly rehired a year later under new titles. There are quotas. There are lists of professions that cannot function without technical experts. The Soviets dismantle factories as reparations. They also need engineers to keep what remains working. The arithmetic of expertise trumps the arithmetic of guilt more often than the slogans admit. Karl fills out his form. He writes, "No party member." He writes, "police clerk." He writes, "never involved in crimes against humanity." He gets a stamped card that allows him to work. In his denazification file, which survives in a municipal archive, the handwriting of the clerk annotates a line, "Recommendation, allow employment as guard with restrictions." The phrase is coded. It means, we need people who can wear boots and keep lines. The displaced arrive by the trainload. Expellees from Silesia, East Prussia, Pomerania. Women with featherbeds tied in twine. Children in oversized coats. Their towns no longer German. Their language now a burden. Their papers say nothing about where they can go. Local authorities assign them rooms in towns already in ruins. The arithmetic of rooms is merciless. 2 families to a room, 4 to a flat. Panel walls of blankets strung on wires. Arguments over stove hours. Water use like war. 15. September 1946. From a municipal council report in a Saxon town, we have received 1,248 evacuees. Housing shortage acute. Requests for coal cannot be met. The handwriting is neat. The message is simple. There is not enough of anything. Karl gets a room because he works with the police. He gets a little extra coal. His neighbor, a woman from Königsberg, calls him a profiteer in the stairwell. He carries her bucket up the stairs anyway. She cries when she talks about her father who vanished on the road west. He does not talk about the man who fell down in the snow. Both know which stories to tell and which to leave on the landing. Near the city, a displaced persons camp stirs. It is different from the camps of punishment. This is a temporary city for Poles, Ukrainians, Jews, Italians, French, former forced laborers. Each group has its own barracks. It is a moral fact that this camp exists within walking distance of German apartments. It is also an administrative problem. Allied administrative problem. Allied administrators organize food distribution. The Red Cross brings blankets. The camp newspaper prints in Yiddish and Polish. A poster on the gate announces a lecture on legal emigration. A Soviet occupation report from late 1945 notes, German inhabitants show indifference to DP camps. Some hostility observed. Recommend educational film showings. In 1946, the film Toes Mühlen screens in German cinemas. People are required to attend. Karl goes. He eats a stale roll on the way. He watches bulldozers pushing bodies. He does not throw up. He does not look away. Afterward, he writes in his notebook, unimaginable. Didn't know. He closes the notebook. He walks home. He sees barbed wire in his memory. He adjusts the way the sentence sits on the page. Didn't know. Becomes a habit in those years. There are strategies of denial. There are strategies of selective memory. People talk about the bombings. People talk about the rapes. People talk about the hunger. People do not ask their neighbor where he was in 1942. A woman asks a question at a church meeting. She is asked to be quiet for the sake of community. An oral history recorded in 1982 will have a voice saying, "We couldn't, we were all broken, and yet we knew, and yet we didn't." The voices of survivors exist in the file. A letter from a Jewish displaced person, lodged in a camp near Zellendorf, to the American military government in November 1946. We request permission to remain in the American sector due to anti-Semitism experienced in the Soviet sector. The words are careful. The memory behind them is not. German civilians hear fragments. Few ask for more. Orders require guards for everything. Power plants, railway yards, food depots, police stands at factory gates become a common sight. Karl is approached in 1948 to join the Volkspolizei. He has the right posture. He has no party card. He is acceptable. He needs extra rations for his son. He signs. In June 1948, West zones introduce new currency. The Soviets answer with their own reform. The blockade begins. The airlift becomes a number. Millions of sticks of chewing gum and boxes of powdered milk. It is a story told in tonnage. East Berlin's stores empty in a day. The mathematics of blockade is simple. The city becomes an island divided by politics and supplied by planes. Karl stands at a checkpoint near Friedrichstrasse. He watches the line to West shops. He watches men in ragged coats sell cigarettes by the stick. He hears the whine of engines overhead. He thinks about coal. He thinks about how you cannot heat yourself with promises. He holds his baton at the right angle. He writes in his notebook, "We are the same street. We are the same street. We are the same street." He completes political education classes. He learns to say antifascist. He learns to say class enemy. He learns that the new state is the opposite of the old one. He looks at colleagues. He sees old soldiers with new pins on their lapels. He thinks about the arithmetic of uniforms. If the same men stand at the gate, what exactly has changed? 1949. The German Democratic Republic is proclaimed. Banners go up in the squares. Speeches are made. The radio says, "Never again fascism, never again war." The refugees in their second-hand coats applaud. The old party men carry new flags. The past is described as a disease cured by a successful operation. The patient is weak, but will survive. The surgeon is the party. The new Volkspolizei expands quickly. There is a shortage of trained personnel. It is a math problem. How to guard borders, factories, ministries with a force built from scratch? The answer is practical. Many former policemen and soldiers are brought in after screening. In the files, the language is precise. Ehemalige Angehörige der Ordnungspolizei. Politisch zuverlässig. Einschätzung. Ausreichend. Einschätzbar. Im Sicherungsdienst. Former member of the Ordnungspolizei. Politically reliable. Assessment. Sufficient. Employable in security service. Karl gets a new uniform. It is dark green. The fabric is coarser. The buttons are cheaper. The cap badge is a wreath with a red star. He stands up straight in the mirror. He sees his father in a uniform from another time. He sees his own face thinner. He pins his name tag under the lapel when he goes off duty. 1950. The Waldheim trials begin. 3,400 defendants. Many are accused of war crimes or Nazi affiliations. Trials are rapid, sentences are heavy, some are fair, some are not. The new state performs justice as a ritual to make a point. It writes its origin story in court records and newspaper headlines. People read about fascist criminals and nod. They also notice that many men with similar pasts are not on trial. The mathematics of guilt again accumulates in two columns, the punished and the useful. Karl stands guard outside a courthouse one morning. He reads the summons in the hand of the man who walks past him. The man's hands shake. The paper calls him Belasteter. He looks at Karl's uniform with hatred and fear. Karl looks at his boots. The Ministry for State Security grows from a small office into a labyrinth. Files multiply. Index cards fill drawers. Reports are filed on neighbors, co-workers, priests, teachers. The logic of the security state is addition. One name leads to three. Three names lead to 9. The mathematics of suspicion is exponential. There are study sessions. There are oaths. There are party meetings. There is a wall calendar with the names of anti-fascist martyrs. There is a notice board with a poster. Betriebsschutz ist Arbeiterschutz. Factory security is workers' protection. He believes it some days. He practices it most days. The Stasi sometimes pulls him into a room and asks him to contribute observations. He writes down facts about a colleague who laughs at a joke. He is not asked whether he laughs at the same joke. He is not asked whether he laughed in 1942. On his street, a man returns from a Soviet camp. He is thin. He is polite. He smiles more than he should. He moves into a room with 2 families already there. He hangs his coat on a nail. He sits quietly in the kitchen. He does not talk about where he was. He has seen too many rooms like this one, and too many nails. In school, Karl's son brings home a textbook. It has chapters on the resistance. It has pictures of ruins. It has a paragraph about the murder of Jews. It is framed as a crime of the monopoly capitalists and their fascist lackeys. The moral is that the new state cannot be like the old. It is a political pedagogy. It is also a simplified memory. Children need story arcs. States need legitimacy. The mathematics of memory becomes curriculum. West of the canals, a different curriculum unfolds. The Wirtschaftswunder begins. Marshall Plan aid arrives in crates. ERP stamps mark pallet after pallet. The Americans send machines. Germany sends back efficiency. Cities rise from pads of concrete into modern glass. Radios sell by the tens of thousands. Leather car seats become symbols of moral normality. A cousin in Hamburg sends a package. It contains coffee, nylons, chocolate, soap. It smells like another world. The smell fills Karl's kitchen. He knows he lives in the wrong city for that smell. Allied intelligence summaries in 1950 report a pattern. Many former Nazi Party members hold lower to mid-level administrative posts in the FRG. Denazification has been largely perfunctory, beyond the identification of major offenders. In the Bundestag, a law passes that allows the reinstatement of civil servants who served under the old regime. It is called the 131 regime. It has a moral argument behind it. Social peace requires integration. It has a practical effect. Old networks return. In schools, the teacher who taught under Hitler now teaches under Adenauer. He omits different things. In the East, the slogan, anti-fascist state, becomes doctrine. The SED insists that the Nazis were capitalists and militarists, and that those elements live in the West. It declares the East a clean slate. The reality is stubborn. Files show quiet rehiring of former Nazis in factories and ministries when their expertise is needed. Personalakte, KB, reads one file. Früher Ordnungspolizei, jetzt Volkspolizei, zuverlässige Arbeitsweise, politisch noch zu schulen. Former Ordnungspolizei, now Volkspolizei, reliable work style, politically still to be schooled. The state writes what it believes is true, even as it records what is true, even as it records what is true. June 1953 arrives like a storm. Workers complain about increased norms. Bread prices wobble. Rumors run down the tram lines. Leaflets appear. Down with the government. Free elections. Reduce norms. The arithmetic of production has been pushed too far. Machines cannot do what the plan says they can. Men cannot eat promises. Karl stands at the head of a street. He watches a river of men move. He hears a chant. He sees hands carry placards. His orders are clear. Keep the intersections clear. Report provocations. Do not engage without command. A radio bark announces tanks at the ready. He files a report on enemy agitation. He writes that Western spies are among the crowd. He writes what the template requires. He goes home. He writes the sentence that will sit under his floorboard for 30 years. In the last war, I guarded a camp. In this one, I guard the workers' state. Only the flag above the watchtower is different. The word watchtower pinches him. The word flag compresses the entire structure that surrounds him. He hides the notebook. He goes back on duty. In front of a factory gate, a boy throws a stone. The stone clinks off a fender. A sergeant raises a hand. A soldier fires into the air. The crowd scatters and regroups. The tanks roll. There is a body later, face down. He will not ask the name. He will file a report with the word unknown where the name should be. After June, the state arrests hundreds. Show trials follow. Headlines are printed. Sentences are read. The newspapers declare the closure of a chapter. The files show that this chapter never closes. It becomes a thicker volume. Karl is moved from street patrol to guard duty at a municipal office. He watches doors. He checks passes. He stamps papers. He reviews reports from informants listed as IM. He enters dates into columns. He becomes part of the arithmetic of the bureaucracy. He stops wearing the uniform on Sundays in his own stairwell. He nods to the Königsberg woman who still lives down the hall. They share a jar of cherries in 1955 for her birthday. They talk about her mother. They talk about her arthritis. They do not talk about June. In 1956, an Allied intelligence summary on the other side of the city notes, the GDR's Ministry of State Security has tightened controls in the wake of 17 June 1953. Recruitment of informants in factories continues apace. The words "continues apace" cover a lot of small betrayals and a few acts of conscience. In one case, an informant refuses to report on his wife. He loses his job. He keeps his wife. The file records both facts without comment. In 1958, Karl is asked to attend a seminar on the fascist past and our socialist future. He takes notes in a neat hand. He writes, "The FRG is the true continuation of fascism." He underlines the phrase twice. He can write what he needs to write when the room calls for it. He can also write other sentences at his kitchen table. He has learned to keep two ledgers in his head. This is the mathematics of surviving the Cold War. One arithmetic for public, one arithmetic for private. The sums never fully match. In August 1961, barbed wire goes up overnight. Concrete follows. Karl watches men on ladders in the early morning. He is not on duty. He stands among quiet clusters of neighbors. Someone says, "Finally." Someone else says nothing. Trains are cut. Streets are interrupted. Relatives on the other side become photographs and occasional packages. The Königsberg woman's cousin is trapped in wedding. She cries. Karl writes in his notebook, "A border is a policy." For us, it is also a staircase that stops on the wrong floor. He has a cousin in the West. He works in an opal factory. He sends postcards. He writes about overtime and a new washing machine and a boy who listens to rock and roll. He avoids writing about the war. He avoids writing about denazification. In 1963 and 1965, the Auschwitz trials in Frankfurt bring testimonies to the front pages of West German newspapers. People read. People discuss. The television shows faces and numbers. There are excuses and there are breakthroughs. A man says, "I did not know," and the courtroom grows cold. A teacher tells his class about the gas chambers. The class is silent. The Bundesarchiv copies the transcripts. The files grow in Europe's memory like scar tissue. In the East, trials of war criminals proceed on television as well. The SED uses them to show moral superiority. The word Auschwitz becomes a prop for arguments about Bonn. The tiny Jewish community in the GDR feels the weight of being symbol and afterthought. Official anti-fascism has little room for particularity. It flattens names into categories. It turns grief into paragraphs about capitalism. It is not enough. It is also what people know how to put in a report. Karl's son becomes a mechanic. He has hands that fix things without thinking. One day in 1971, he asks his father where he was in 1942. The question is clean and sharp. It is the question people learned to ask in the 70s. Karl answers exactly enough. He says, "Guard duty." He says, "Nothing like what you imagine." He does not speak about the register of numbers. He does not speak about the sudden cold in the watchhouse when a whistle blew. In his personnel file, an assessment in 1973 notes, "Comrade B is reliable, punctual, not overly ideological. He can be trusted with routine tasks, recommended for continued service until retirement." The sentence contains his life: reliable, punctual, not overly ideological, trusted with routine tasks. A man minimized by adjectives. He is fine with that. He does not want to be a chapter. Heading: he watches new shows on a small television. He watches parades. He watches speeches. He watches a West German program captured by accident. He sees a documentary about forced laborers in wartime Germany. He sees a woman in French speaking about a factory in Silesia. He hears the name of the plant. He hears the name of the town. He goes cold. He turns off the television and sits for a long time by the kitchen window. He writes nothing that night. He watches the courtyard. There is a cemetery he visits. There are multiple stones with the year 1945. There are a few with 1953. He stops by the one that belongs to the body found face down. The stone says, "An unknown." He stands at it longer than he should. The gardener knows his face and nods. The gardener leaves him alone. He has friends who emigrated west in 1956, in 1961, in 1979. He has friends who could not get permission. He writes letters that say very little. He receives letters that say very little. He understands. He tears the stamps off and saves them. He tells himself it is for collecting. It is also the way his hands do something while his head calculates what can and cannot be kept. In 1983, a study circle discusses memory. A young historian speaks about the continuity of elites across regimes. He uses numbers and footnotes. He names names gently. He is careful. A party functionary nods and says, "We have always been against fascism." The historian replies, "Yes." Everyone hears the unspoken clause after yes. In 1985, a file is opened about Karl's drunken comment at a family gathering. He said something about 1953 that someone reported. The report uses the word negative. It goes into a drawer. He is 50. He receives a letter warning him to keep his opinions to himself. He tears it up and flushes it. He sleeps badly for a week. He does not tell his wife. He retires in 1987. He goes to the office one last time. He turns in his badge. He receives a certificate. He shakes hands. He walks home through streets that look different from 1945 and yet are the same. He walks past a shop window with bread and cake. He walks past an old woman with a shovel's posture in her spine. In 1989, crowds gather again. He hears chants again. He knows the feeling in the air when a state hesitates. He smells the smell of thousands of bodies moving in one direction. He stands on a corner and watches people move toward a wall that is suddenly a bridge. He touches his face. He thinks about the sentence under the floorboard. He sees men in uniforms who look like him 30 years ago. He hopes they are better. He also knows they are just men. The files open in the 90s. The Stasi records become mirrors people can choose to approach or avoid. Some knock and ask to see what the paper knows about them. Some cannot face it. Some discover that friends wrote reports. Some discover that they themselves wrote reports and have called them something else in their own minds. The mathematics of blame becomes a community exercise. People measure each other's pasts in centimeters and kilograms and but. A clerk in a federal office asks Karl if he wishes to see his file. He says no. He says paperwork has already measured him enough. He receives a new pension number. He receives a new card. He stands in a new queue. He speaks into a new microphone. The present changes quickly in Germany. The past changes slowly or not at all. In West Germany, school books changed in the 70s, becoming more direct. In East Germany, they never changed much. In the unified Germany of the 90s, school books change again. They try to hold both stories. They try to hold all the numbers at once. Expulsions and bombings and Holocaust and resistance and camps and walls. They try to teach children to add memory without subtraction of conscience. It works sometimes. It is more than nothing. It is less than what a cleaner world would require. Care parcels no longer arrive. Western appliances are everywhere. Wages are never close to equal for many. A statistic shows unemployment in the East at twice the West in 1993. Karl walks past a job center. He sees men the age. He was in 1953 leaning against a wall. He does not stop. He keeps moving. He knows what it is to have the state look at you as a problem to be solved with a file. There are memorials. Stolpersteine are embedded in sidewalks, names of Jews taken from their homes, names of Sinti and Roma, names of political prisoners, names that used to be kept out of view because states had other stories to tell. People look down, people stumble, people bend. The act of bending is moral exercise. Karl stops at one near his house. He reads the name. He reads the year. He thinks about the barracks in Silesia. He thinks about his own files. He goes home and opens the floorboard. He reads his sentence. It is not as brave as he remembered. It is not as shameful as he feared. It is a man telling himself a hard truth when there were only whispers. He writes another sentence under it, with a hand that shakes now. He writes, "I did not choose the flag. I did choose to stand by the watchtower." He reads it again. He considers crossing it out. He leaves it. He closes the floorboard. He makes tea. Some years later, a local historian visits him. She is writing an oral history of the neighborhood. She asks him what he saw in 1945. He tells her about rubble. He tells her about women with shovels. He tells her about the hunger winter and cigarettes used as currency. He tells her about black markets and barter and boys with scars. He tells her about a man returning from a Soviet camp. He tells her about June. He does not tell her about the register of prisoner numbers. He does not tell her about the boy throwing the stone. He does not tell her about the body face down. He keeps those under his floorboard. He writes in 2003, "I did my job in 2 Germanys. Each time I tried to go home at night and feed my children. Each time I looked away when I had to. Each time I wrote a report when someone told me to. Each time the report was about someone else and also about me." He walks with a cane. He passes a police patrol that looks like a fashion catalogue. Bulletproof vests under jackets, radios at their shoulders. The officers look like children to him. He nods. They nod back. He is relieved to be invisible. He keeps his notebooks in a shoebox. He numbers the pages. He writes dates. He writes the names of streets. He writes the word arithmetic when he can't find a bigger word. The arithmetic of fear. The arithmetic of bread. The arithmetic of guilt. The arithmetic of rooms. The arithmetic of borders. The arithmetic of neighbors. He reads newspapers. He reads a story about a former SS man found in Canada. He reads a story about a trial in Munich in 2011. He reads letters to the editor about whether a 90-year-old man should be punished. He folds the newspaper quietly. He walks to the window and looks at the courtyard. He writes, "People say we are not what happened before. I say we are. We are exactly what happened before, plus what we told ourselves after." He remembers an argument in a stairwell in 1946. He remembers a package in 1950. He remembers a stone in 1953. He remembers a wall in 1961. He remembers a night in 1989. He remembers the smell of a synthetic fuel plant in 1942. He will not write the name of the plant again. He has no monument. He is not a symbol. He is an example. He is one node in a system. He knows this. He finds relief in it sometimes. A relation asks if he regrets anything. He says yes. He will not list these things. Listing is what states did to him. He will keep his lists to himself. The historian he talked to writes an essay. She cites Oral History 2010. She does not use his last name. She does not guess what she cannot know. She writes a paragraph about the GDR's anti-fascist myth and the biographies that contradicted it. She writes 2 footnotes about the Waldheim trials and the 17 June uprising. She writes about the psychology of changing uniforms. The tone is cool and human. It is the only tone that fits. An archivist files a folder with his personnel records into a box in the Bundesarchiv. The catalogue entry includes his initials, birth year, service record, and a note. No recorded disciplinary actions. It is a sentence that implies a lot and proves nothing. He is 90 when he writes a last line in his notebook. The ink is pale now. His fingers ache. The words climb out slowly, paying attention to each other the way men in line watch each other move. People think the front line was at the river and the hill and the wall. For me, the front line was my desk and my door and the papers I signed. It was what I knew and what I let myself forget. In the last war, I guarded a camp. In this one, I guarded the workers' state. Only the flag above the watchtower was different. The watchtower wasn't.